Tadd Fujikawa, standing at 5 foot 1 inches, could hit the ball pretty far. In fact, his average drives and longest drives are only about 15 yards short of the longest on tour today, Cameron Champ. The fact that someone much smaller can generate club and ball speeds at an elite level should give most of us hope. Today, we will compare Tadd's old and new motion and see what has changed. We will also compare Tadd and Cameron and see how each hits the ball so far and what you can do to inspire this in your game. Thanks for those who have supported the channel and our efforts to grow the game in Cape Flats, South Africa. If you like this educational kind of stuff, consider subbing and do us a favor, hit the like button, share, and drop a comment. This will help us reach more viewers like you. But enough of that hogwash. Let's get ready to rumble. Lion Golf Academy members and guests, welcome back. We have Tadd on the left and Tadd on the right. And when I started to look at these two swings together, I wasn't convinced that it was the same guy, but I really did my research. I looked at the footwork, looked at the handwork, and yes, it is the same guy. The one on the left side is much younger, much more flexible. One on the right side is definitely aged. I would say there's a 15 to 16 year difference between these two videos, but we're going to look at what is going on and why they don't look the same. And it's mostly from the compression points past impact. The one on the left side, the body seems to be pulling away from the golf ball, leaving some spacing for him to compress up and down. The one on the right side, the body seems to be moving into the golf ball, leaving limited compression space and a lot of hand and arm manipulation past impact. It just looks a lot less powerful on the right side. But let's break this whole thing down. But after this, we're going to compare him and Cameron, who is the #1 driver on the PGA Tour today. They're only about 15 yards difference, but Cameron is 1 foot taller. So we'll see how they generate club head speed and what you can try to learn from both of them to maybe apply some of it to your swing. But it's mostly setup and God-given talent, which we might have one, but who knows about the other one. Okay, so initially we're going to look at the setup. Now, setup, I try to get these at the same angle. They're both, the one on the right side is a little bit crooked. The one on the left side is directly behind, but it also could be crooked because of the foot line. I think Tadd is pulling that right foot back to help him. However, let's take a look at the initial setup, and this is the key I want to show you, and this is why the newer swing doesn't really compress into the golf ball as much, because of weighting the way he's set up. Now, I think some of this has to do with age and also preventing injuries, and I'll show you right at impact. So let's just go straight to impact, and right away we can see this is about a frame after impact. Look at the one on the right side, look at the one on the left side. We see a lot more rotation left side. Even past impact, you'll see a huge amount of difference here. Look at that right shoulder on the left side facing the target. We just see the back. They're both staying in their spine angle, both productive swings. The one on the left side, definitely you can see why it has more power, but the key thing is why do we have more power on the left side? Obviously younger, stronger, but look at that left foot. Look at how the left foot is leaning into the ground. A lot of pressure on the knee down here, a lot of pressure on the ankle down here, some pressure on the back, not as much though. But look at this guy. The right side looks like he's preventing some injuries, so it could be the fact that he is a little bit injured or preventing some injuries. But let's back it up, because that's where this whole thing starts. So when I look at somebody's setup, I'm looking at their athleticism. Do they look like they're going to strike the golf ball well? The one on the left side versus the one on the right side, we can see a little bit more tilt with the one on the right side. It's a little bit more down, where this one's a little bit taller. However, the most important thing to realize is where is his center point. So if you take the plane line, which is the yellow line, you take the spine angle line, where they intersect, that's basically the center. So let's draw a circle in blue right where that center of his swing is, and let's see where his feet are supporting that. So if we draw straight lines down from that center point, we don't even need to do it on the left side, because you can see that purple line laying straight down. But if you do it on the right side, we're going to leave that blue line right there and see how that plays havoc with his motions. So basically, we're looking at a more toe heavy swing on the right side and a more neutral swing on the left side. Now, the one on the left side, he is going to stand up slightly as he takes that club back to get him more turn, and this will allow him to move more up and down. With the one on the right side, because of that extra forward lean, is going to increase your spine angle, which is the red line, and now he's going to have to get a little bit more tilt to allow him so he doesn't turn as much. And from that position, he's going to be stuck on his toes, because when you increase your tilt, your weighting shifts to your toes more, and then you're going to get stuck. And then from that point, it's hard to get the momentum pushing back left while you're holding your spine angle when you started a little bit more deeper in your spine. So let's take a look as we take that club back. So let's take a look, and we have about the same one-piece takeaway. As we get to the top of the swing, we can see a little bit of a difference here, and let's break out our eyeball tool here, and let's do a shoulder tilt check. And the one on the left side is sitting Forgive me for my lack of knowing where straight is, but we're going to try and do this as best as we can. So we can see there's that little bit of extra shoulder tilt just because of the shoulder bend, which is the red line, is a little bit more forward because of the weighting was a little bit too far behind his hip joints. Now, when you have an increase of tilting, you're probably going to maintain the same amount of tilt, but you're going to crash into each other. And because more weight is on the toes, I mean, look at that left knee. That left knee is definitely more flexed. A lot of the weight is receiving on the toes, where if you look at the one on the right side, has he stood up? Let's take a look at his posture. So we see the new spine angle slightly standing up. The one on the left side, it is slightly, and forgive me, I lost all my lines. I don't know what happened. Technical difficulties, but let's redraw these and let's add in that secondary plane line where the arm should get to. Let's go straight to the top of the swing and just what we're talking about, coming out of the posture slightly. And we can see this arm on the left side definitely gets higher. This arm gets lower. So we're definitely losing some width. And when you lose width, the arm gets closer to the chest a little bit too soon. But let's check where that spine angle line is. And we can see, just as predicted, the new spine angle line is a little bit more upright and the older spine angle line is not as upright. It is still losing some of that posture, but not as much. So this is key for him, because at this top position here, left side, at least the center point is being supported by the upper body now by flattening out and standing up a little bit. Where the right side of the screen, we can see that some of this body is still stuck on that front side, and look at the amount of bracing that we see in that left knee. So a lot of this is stuck over his toes, and this is a challenge for him because he's no longer going up and down as much as the old motion. So if we take that first move down, we'll start to see both of them sit a little bit, but look at the one on the right side. It's not sitting as much versus the one on the left side, and we can tell this if we draw a little line here right at the top of his head. So we do see some difference there, and what we do see as well is the compression. So this is the one part that these guys and girls can hit as far as they start to compress downward. So that downward compression, then you pair it with back to the left heel as you turn. Now all of a sudden you're pulling everything away from that golf ball, and when you pull things away from that golf ball, you enact more turn. You can only do this if the centeredness is connected throughout the entire body. So we can still see that it's still over that hip, and this is that right hip joint, where the one on the right side, we see that right hip joint kind of stuck where that red line is. So we cannot pull back, we cannot compress as much, and we cannot pull away from the golf ball as much. So we are stuck, and we'll start to see this. Let's get rid of all these arrows here. We'll start to see this as we get down to the golf ball. So right there. Now visually, yeah, you can kind of see they're the same golfer, but what can you see on the left side? Look at now. He went down initially. Now he's pushing back up. His lower body's pulling back this way, and we can tell by look at the rotation. Where does the weight go? It goes to the heels as he follows through on that left heel. The one on the right side, he is stuck on his toes. When you can push back up and pull left, now your width between your spine angle is much further from the golf ball. So this creates that width. So the upper body has compressing up and down, the lower body's pulling away. This is where you get extreme power. The one on the right side, it's more rotation. There's not a lot of compression. There's not a lot of pushing. There's not a lot of pulling the body away from the golf ball. And as a result, watch the follow through as he comes through. So look at the right hand over left on the newer Tadd on the right side. So there's less rotation. He is stuck because of the weighting is still stuck too far forward. He's trying to keep the weighting connected to that yellow circle, but you can see it's still favoring that right hip because the right hip is stuck in that position. It can't turn much more because of the weighting is too stuck far forward. And you see the post release, we see that the left toe on the newer Tadd on the right side is stuck versus the left toe on the older Tadd spins through because things are working their way under and around. This is the picture that says everything. Look at the hands, how they're still way out in front of the chest, full extension, connected to the center of the chest. We see the right shoulder almost facing the target at this point. Here we see him staying very well in his posture on the right side. However, there's lack of rotation, and what makes up for the rotation is look at those hands. So the hands have to do a lot of manipulation and trying to get whatever power they can deliver from whatever rotation he was able to do. So the one on the right side is some rotation and releasing that power at impact and timing it. So we see a lot of rolling the wrist to try and time up that release point. Where the one on the right side, let's clear those lines up so we can see this, is we don't see that rolling. We just see whole body facing the target, coming on through, hands are in front of the chest, and the escape pattern. Look at how high the Tadd is on the left side. You can only get that high when your whole body is turned through the golf ball. So look at this, right shoulder, left shoulder. They're pointing almost at his target. Here, they're pointing well right of the target. He still does a good job staying his spine angle, but look at where the power is finishing. Only here does he get his left hip to catch up to the center point, where here his left hip is always on that center point. So look at the difference. We're going to back up again. Past impact, he gets to where he wants to be. Past impact, he gets to where he wants to be. Left side of the screen, he's there already. That left hip is over that center point. So this is where you can generate a lot of power, is by setting up correctly. So if Tadd was one of my students, the only thing we would be working on is getting his setup corrected and see his body, how it evolves through. And if it is an issue with rotation or flexion or strength, then we address that. But now let's take a look at Tadd versus Cameron. See the big dogs, and let's see how they generate power with 1 foot of difference in height. So since the video on the right side is at that crooked angle, I'd say the camera angle is about 4 o'clock on a watch. We won't be able to do some setup lines just because we need to be right behind. But what I want you guys to focus on is that right shoulder action from the top of the swing. So we see that both hands are fairly high, and this is what's common with long drive hitters. I want you to pay specific attention to where Cameron's ball position is. If we draw that ball and draw it outside, it is almost outside of his left foot. Now, this is a key thing for him, because if you look at the right side of the screen, watch his first move. So his first move is to lean down and slightly left. So what he is doing is he's getting his weight pushed off down to his left side immediately. So that's that weight distribution. Now from here, he can actually just get his right shoulder to tilt straight down and keep that rotation going. So look at that right shoulder. He's made the clearance room by tilting. The upper body is now rotating as well. Severe upper body, but look at the right shoulder. Both people have that right shoulder never stopping moving. They're always rotating, even past impact. That right shoulder completely clears and goes under the chin as you rotate through. Now, to do this, you need a lot of flexibility. You need a lot of power to hold your posture while the shoulders are going through. But in order to do that, you need to create some spacing. And where does the spacing come from? It comes from the hips clearing out the way. Where does that come from? That comes from good weight distribution. And where does that come from? From the centeredness of your setup. If you're not centered when you set up with that line going right through your hip joint, your line will be struggling. You will be fighting that line. You'll either go with it or against it. And this is where you start having some plane issues and some rotation issues because you're too busy fighting your setup. Watch that right shoulder. Watch it go all the way through. So if you're taping your swing, if you're looking at impact, past impact, watch your right shoulder and see if it's moving. If it's stopping, ask yourself, why is it stopping? Is it blocking because my body's not getting out the way? How is my setup? How is my rotation? Then you can start to work your way back. So always check your grip alignment, setup, posture. I hope that helps you identify how each person can hit the golf ball pretty far, and everybody can hit the ball much further. You just have to make sure that you are setting up correctly and allowing the body to move freely, and let the bigger muscles hit the golf ball for you, and let the trail muscles, which is your arms and your hands, just go along for the ride and release the club naturally. So hope that helps you. If you do like this, hit that like, share, subscribe, even comment if you want. But until next time, I will see you fairways and greens.